Hi, everybody. This is Jari Cartoni from Experience Plus. I will be your moderator for this session. Right in front of you, you can see Amy Peck, CEO and founder of EndeavorVR. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, fine. How are you?
I'm good. It's early, but I have a giant coffee, so I'm in good shape.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. So let's introduce you a little bit so we can allow people to enter. Do you want to say something about you, your career?
Sure. Yeah. So I founded EndeavorVR. Gosh, it's now about 6 years ago. Really with the sole purpose to focus on immersive technologies in the enterprise. And I think it's been a great journey because finally now we're recognizing the utility in enterprise, and we're here now. So it's an exciting time for the technology.
Yeah. I can imagine. I have some question for you if they not raise up. Meantime, I want to inform people in the session that they will have many ways to interact with us. There is a right sidebar in which they can have a chat with any other people, participate to polls if we made one. They can write down question in the Q&A section. And also they can ask to participate and have a talk live with you, raising hand. The raise hand button is on the bottom of your screen, so you can raise your hand and we will invite you to be on stage if you like to. So let's wait a little bit if people are coming. Yeah. Okay, let's break the ice with some little question I have from your keynote that I found very interesting. So the first question that comes in my mind is the thought about older generation. I know I'm a little bit on the track of making you people having not having usability issues. And I was imagining my older dad using VR, doing things at work. I don't know. Do you think this could be a slowing down issue?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and it's really important. It's actually something that a lot of the hardware manufacturers are addressing is making these wearables truly wearable for everyone. And in the user testing that we've done, it's interesting where we're not finding it's as much about people who even have a technology background. It's really more a willingness to try. So irrespective of someone's age, if they're interested in trying the technology, now I have several headsets here. I've got a Magic Leap sitting right here, which is basically just kind of a looking more like glasses. I can actually pull it out while we're talking, and I have a Quest 2, which is pretty lightweight. So they're becoming more and more wearable. So like for example, with my Magic Leap, it's pretty lightweight and it just goes on just like this, right? So it's now granted, if most people could see themselves, they'd be more concerned.
Yeah.
But the wearability factor, these devices are getting lighter and lighter, and this is a fairly lightweight device because they've put the compute power in a pack that is actually separate. HoloLens is a little bit heavier, but still is fairly, easy to wear. So it's again, the form factor is getting better and better. And I think where we need to get to is this, and this is the gold standard. But we're going to see a version hitting the market late this year, early next year, from Facebook, from Apple, and from others. Nreal has had their product out for some time, and they really feel more like a consumer, a pair of sunglasses. They're much lighter weight. But once we get to this level, I really feel like that, these wearables will be for everyone.
Okay. So this leads to a second question about the mainstream market, because we have a lot of boomer generation people that are not used to technology, and sometimes they are the audience that leading the mainstream market. No, so do you think the mainstream market could be affected early, or maybe it's already affected and we do not understand it quite well. I don't know.
Yes, well, it's interesting because with every technology, there's sort of trial and error and failure, and then trial, error, failure. We're still in that phase, very much so. So I think we saw, Google Glass released a few years ago that was, kind of marked as a failure, but then their second generation device, which was released, I believe last year, their enterprise version, it's being used in warehouses. So it's interesting. I did talk about looking at consumer in my talk, but it's really both tracks. But the early adopters are really people in enterprise, and they're looking to solve a problem with this, a very specific problem with this technology. Where we're going to need to get to with consumer is really utility, everyday utility. So I can put these on, I can kind of project texts in my field of view. I can get directions. That'll be sort of the early version. There'll be more of a heads up display and true sort of augmented reality than really, mixed or blended reality. But again, then, 2.0 and 3.0 of these devices, I remember I didn't actually buy the iPhone until it was the third, the iPhone 3. I waited because I just found it a little bit irritating to use. It wasn't quite a fluid experience. And so it's going to be a test of how good we make the user experience.
Yeah, I've stepped in at the fourth generation, so I can understand. So effectively, these are more a thing of integrating technologies, pushing for the ARVR, or maybe it's slowing down, because some people think that the more technology are in the market, the more they are competing each other some way. Or do you think these technologies are pushing together to a vision, as you said in your keynote?
Yeah, I think right now the industry is so small that I do see a lot of companies collaborating, or at least kind of working together to elevate the industry, because of course that's going to benefit everyone. The expression, rising tide raises all boats. I think that's where we are today. I think there's plenty of time for competition. There are not that many headsets on the market now. You see some dominant players both in VR and AR. And then beyond that, you see a lot of smaller players. That will continue. But it's an expensive game on the hardware side. Yep. These devices, especially mixed reality, especially Magic Leap, especially the HoloLens 2, they are very expensive to manufacture. They have high-end optics. So we're not going to see the price come down on those for quite a while. But, we're spending in a lot of cases, several hundred to sometimes over $1,000, US dollars and euros for our mobile devices. So once we get to that level of utility with our glasses, where really we are able to count on them almost as much as we do our smartphones, then I think the pricing factor and the competitors in the market, I think that landscape will sort of level out.
Okay. So the matter is a portability issues more than a technology issue.
It's a little of both. I mean, the technologies, it's still a nascent technology. For those of us who have been in for a while, I refer to us as the second grade soccer team, because we're this very small group, and we've all been traveling around the world to conferences like this over the years when we were still traveling, and really talking about what the possibilities were for the technology. But we're very much on the precipice now. And again, I use the analogy of sort of moving from, those early cellular devices, I think I had my Motorola flip phone in the 90s, and my father had a, cell phone in a briefcase that probably weighed about 10 kilos, it was insane. So it was a long evolution. It wasn't this sort of quick, sort of overnight success. But then once smart devices came out and we started to see those devices, new ones coming out every year, every 18 months, every 2 years, we're going to see that life cycle with the wearable devices as well.
Okay, we have the first question from the audience. Oh, okay. So Fabian asking, hello, what is the current level of awareness of business leaders, CEOs, regarding the ARVR technology, generated value for customer mindset changes, things like that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's really something that I look at a lot. It runs the gamut. It's really amazing. You have some companies who are already deploying the technology, and they've deployed it across multiple business units, especially around things like that I think I talked a little bit about, collaboration and training, and design, and certainly for AR and mixed reality, remote assistance, and VR is very, very strong for training as well, and us, both mixed reality and virtual reality for designing, because often designers, especially in the automotive industry, are all over the world. And for them to actually be able to work on these large scale 3D designs, collaboratively. So it's definitely starting. There are other companies that are very much, aware of the technology, but they're in a wait and see mode. It's not a technology that you just, sort of say, all right, well, let's just try, this, right? And you just sort of pull some software and download it and put it on your headset. It does require some investment. It requires some time. It requires some user testing within your organization. But one of the things that we've been seeing is a lot of companies now are in what we call an envisioning stage. So like, for example, my company will bring in a team. We'll look at all of the business units, right, that you're looking at for your entire company. We look at your company holistically. Even if you have a vision and you say, we think we need this for training, we want to look at all of your other business units so that we start to build this as a tool and an enterprise grade workflow tool, as opposed to just, one technology that solves one problem.
Okay, so it's a matter of workflow, not only the little piece. Also, there is an issue about integration in companies' workflow. Okay.
Exactly. And, if you think about, I talk about mobile a lot, but we learned a lot from mobile. And what we want to get to is, we now have bring your own device, right? We're using our phones now for work, and we're using our personal phones for work. We will, at some point, the real tipping point will be when you have the consumers saying, I want to be able to use my wearables at work. And they'll start to even drive what pieces of their workflow they will find most valuable using their own devices. And it's a level of understanding of what the technology can do on the consumer side as also part of the driver for companies to start adopting the technology.
Of course. Oh, you have the thank from Fabian for answering. Also, another question from our audience, Maria Renker. What could impede the growth of virtual and augmented reality? This is a really good question.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, and form factor that we talked about is one of them. It's difficult to wear, a VR device for a long period of time. It's difficult to wear even, HoloLens, Magic Leap for a long time. All of these devices still are bigger than they are going to need to be ultimately. And then there are pieces in terms of the back end architecture and the secure nature of networks within and on-premise servers for large enterprise and for government and military. These are highly, highly secure areas, and their IT infrastructure is very challenging. And so to actually be able to enable these devices and have mobile device management and have CDN networks set up to be able to push content to your employees and be able to administrate, these different devices. Those are some of the things that we're finding challenging. There are, there's certainly ways to deploy, but deploying at scale is going to be a longer cycle while we start to kind of manage how we can control, not just a few dozen devices or maybe 100 devices or 500 devices, but where we start to get to 10 and 20 and 30,000 devices in an organization globally.
Yeah, this leads to another question, because you talked about secured environments and things like that. What's your thought about privacy issues? Because you were talking about scanning things around, mobile mesh, things like that. Do you have an opinion about how privacy will be managed in some way?
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because when you look at when Google Glass came out, people weren't really looking at it as a breakthrough. What they were really concerned about is, what are these people doing walking around with outward facing cameras? And I don't want to be recorded. And I think a lot of that's changed. I think what also we don't realize is we've been tracked and scanned and filmed, and there's been facial recognition around, for a decade. And we've had sensors all around us all the time, filming pretty much everything we do. And so I think as we've started to understand that, there are concerns, but the general public is not as proactive, about how they're thinking about privacy. That's another conversation, certainly for another time. Yeah. But within secure environments, really the only way for that to work is for all of that scanned data to live on-prem or in private servers, private cloud. But then there are other applications where it's much more valuable to actually have public cloud to be able to leverage dynamic rendering, cloud rendering, and then sort of dynamic delivery of experiences through cloud and edge and on device. So those things are being resolved, but I wouldn't say that there's a clear path today. But we do know what needs to happen, and so we're working on all of those pieces to be able to deploy in highly secure environments, and we are able to do so today. It's just we have to really, every environment is unique in how their IT is structured.
Yeah, of course, of course. We have another question now from Thomas Deming. It's a very structured question, so I try to sum up a little bit. He's saying basically that people are using companies, are using the VR world in an old-fashioned way. So they try to replicate interaction that are already used in the real world. And he is wondering why they are not improving the kind of interaction we can do, because basically everything virtually is possible in the virtual world. Sorry for the joke on the words.
No, but I'm so happy you asked this question. I'm smiling because sometimes when I give these talks, I give the example of when we moved from radio to television. All they did was they just took a camera and they put it in front of the radio announcer. But the radio announcer was mostly men at that time, were still sitting at his same desk with the same microphone reading a paper. And then someone thought, oh, well, maybe we could put another camera, or maybe we could go out and put a camera on the thing that he's talking about. And so that is such a smart way to think about it, because what we need to do is we haven't even scratched the surface of what the medium is capable of, and really what these virtual worlds mean for us. And then relative to the AR cloud, again, is it really valuable for us to just be able to maybe see our Instagram feed on the side of a building as opposed to on our phones? No, but what if we were able to encapsulate an experience or some sort of information about our environment and have it live in that space for us to either discover, or maybe there are pieces of invisible art all around us or invisible music, and we can kind of put ourselves in discovery mode and discover this whole new layer of excitement and interaction around us. But we really have to get there. We have to just, again, it goes back to just having a fluency with the technology, where we have so many people who have these devices, who understand them, and then creators thinking, oh, wait, this is a great way to do something, like let's create this experience in this place.
Yeah, maybe it's an example of what other technology can do to integrate, because I think, I don't know if it's right, but that once we'll have brain interfaces with the VR, maybe we will find other ways of interacting, maybe having 4 arms, I don't know. Because right now it's very mimicking the real world, and we only do the same thing, basically.
Well, and I'm going to go back to when, I don't know if all of you saw the keynote, but I do talk about, really looking at what do we want our lives to look at? And this is really interesting. This is part of what we do when we do our envisioning sessions. The first session is often not about a business at all. It's about saying, all right, 20 years from now, what does my life look like? Where do you live? How do you communicate? How do you shop? How do you drive around? Do you have a flying car? Like really, most people don't have that vision. It's really interesting. When we were kids, if you ask a 5-year-old, what they would do, if they'll tell you they'll go to the moon and, play with their pet giraffe, and they'll have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with Martians, and then they'll be back, home in time for dinner. They have this ability to create these worlds and this vision for the future. And we kind of lose that because we're mired in our day-to-day work. And, the term that I use is called volumetric thinking. And it's really about thinking about, what's out there, what is the art of the possible, and what do I really want? It's desire-based, right? That's when I say proactive versus reactive. It's like, let's build towards the things that we want to have happen. And the thing that creators do best is they solve just specific problems, or they create things that make them happy, them personally happy. And then what they find is that, it makes other people happy too.
Yeah. I think emotions could drive many of the technologies that are now on the market. We have another question from Maria Renker. Maria, I don't know if I pronounced it well. So she is concerned about the lasting physical effects of using VR and augmented reality. One that comes to my mind is motion sickness, that it's very diffused. There are studies finding massive health risk within VR. Do you think this is also an issue that needs to be tackled, or it's something to make made huge by media or things like that?
No, it's incredibly important, and it's something that we really need to understand better. For example, and I think it was Sony who did some studies, but there are some studies also just around what it could do to eyes, and which is why we recommend that, children there are different studies. Some say children under 8, some say even children under 12 should not be using VR. And the mixed reality glasses and even the wearables that are coming, especially the ones that are using, light field display, and we're actually projecting light into our eyes, that could have some health ramifications. And so we do need to do a lot more studies, on that. I think the best advice, your body is very good at telling you what it can manage. I find that when I'm in VR for, more than a couple of hours, especially if I'm playing Beat Saber or I'm doing something that really has my attention, it does make me a little tired and I get fatigued. I wear contacts, so a lot of times I'm in there, I might not be blinking as much as I need to blink. And so, I listen to my body and I take the headset off and I stop. And then of course I have, my fabulous VR face for about 2 hours after with indents here. And
Yeah.
No, but Maria, you bring up a really important point, and there are some studies going on. There really isn't anything definitive at the moment, again, because we don't have large data sets that we're able to work from, because there's not a lot of people using these devices on a regular basis. But it's certainly something that we want to study and understand, as this technology hits the market.
Okay, clear. Right now it's saying not a question, but I agree, lack of physical movement as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But ironically, it's funny because, if you think about even, gamers as a set of people, I think the thought process was that, well, gamers are actually, in their basements, their parents' house, just playing games 24/7 and not moving. But that's changed a lot with this technology, that you are actually getting up, and especially with room scale VR, and especially with mixed reality devices that allow you to move around a space safely because you can see your surroundings. I think even though, again, I'm not as focused on games, so I'm not well versed, but you're starting to see a lot of really physical interactions in these games. So I think that is a plus, right? That we're hopefully not going to be as sedentary, and we're not going to be sitting at our laptops all day, even in workflows, right? We're able to actually When I'm working with in mixed reality, I'm able to walk around a 3D asset and look, and my team can be there with me. And so I think some of those elements are really interesting just from a physical movement perspective. But again, the safety standards are going to be really, really important.
Yep. Yeah. I'm a gamer. Sorry for making my opinion, but I can agree with you that it's a huge technology for the gamers. But I see the same awareness, the same concern about health, because I'm one of the people that are suffering from migraine. And once I use the VR, 10 minutes, and it starts the migraine really quickly.
It's interesting. Yeah. And I think we also need to, capture this data, and so we, it's also important for us to, especially if you are having personal issues. I'll do some research as well, but I think it's important to also find people who are doing studies. A lot of the universities are doing studies. I know there have been some studies in the UK, there have been some studies in Spain. It'd be interesting to have people like you, get involved in those studies and share what's going on, and if there are certain triggers, or if there are certain experiences where you do get a migraine and then there are others that you don't, or if the environment is bright or if it's dark, or, there are a lot of factors that go into it that we don't understand yet. And I'm sorry to hear that.
No, but as far as I can tell, 10 minutes of Skyrim VR was amazing at the time. It was a long time ago, but it was a really cool experience. And also, I found that the exaggeration in movements can help you find a way to move more, because maybe people are not used to move much nowadays. Yeah. And you have these kind of exaggerated movements. So it was a really cool experience. So we are missing question from the audience. Please, people, interact with us.
Yes, more questions.
Yeah. I wanted to see also the raise hand functionality, but we cannot make it. The people are shy, sadly. So I will ask you one provocative thing. If you can name 3 top things that humanity, the society, what you will name it, should do about VR and AR to make it better or make it more mainstream?
Well, I think one thing for sure is, and I actually point to kind of 3 things that get us to the tipping point relative to content. And those 3 things are, context. So where am I? What do I need? What information do I need? Utility, that, an application or a suite of applications, or, the, window that this allows us to peer into, really solves a lot of problems in our lives, right? It makes our lives better, makes it easier, allows us to interact with all manner of data. And the third is fun. And it's something that we forget even in the flow of work, that we have this opportunity to kind of add a layer of creativity or art or music kind of into our workflow to make it more interesting. And VR in particular, you're in this very controlled environment, and so it does transport you somewhere. So why not use that opportunity to also make it really an engaging experience, even if you're doing a rote task? I mean, I'm not suggesting that while you're working on, SpaceX had another, successful launch yesterday, which was really exciting. I don't necessarily want the people working on those rockets to be, playing a game or dancing around, listening to music. But I think there are activities in the flow of work where you could infuse interactions or infuse environments that just make it more interesting for us. And then for consumer level, I think that goes without saying. I think they have to be very easy to use. They have to give us the data that we want when we want it. And they have to be entertaining in some way.
Yeah, it's the matter of gamification that we struggle to do also on to these things. It's hard to do also on all the technology, as I can say, current gen. But I can understand that. So people are not asking questions. Okay.
That's okay. You're shy. That's all right.
Yeah. It's sad because it's an occasion they had the chance to talk about things interactively, so
Yeah.
it would be
Well, I'll tell
a
you what
great
I'd like
feeling.
to do. I'd like to ask the audience, if each of you just don't be shy and think of something. It can be a gadget, it can be an
Oh, they have
interaction
responded.
or an environment. No, but if you can put in the chat something that you would like to have for yourself in 15 or 20 years, whether, like for me, I want to have this what I call my FMD, my follow me drone, and it's just a little drone that does recon. It might, go and peer around a corner. It might go see, if I travel all the time. Like, what would be an interesting thing for me to go and look at, help me with directions, play a little music for me, remind me if I've met someone, because that is the worst, when I've met someone and I can't remember. It's not because I'm a terrible person. It's because I literally just can't remember because I meet too many people. So that's one for me. So if you have any of those, put them in the chat, because when you start to articulate these things, someone else will see it and go, "Oh, that would be great." And then eventually
Yeah, I
you're
have
gonna get it
someone.
to someone who will build it for you.
Let's keep him in stage. Let's see if I can do that. We have someone that is asking for the stage.
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't know how to. Yeah, there I have a camera. Sorry.
Hi,
Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Thank you for well articulated presentation and answers on the questions. I like what you talked about: context, utility, and fun. What we have done since March last year is train seniors 75 years and older just to join Zoom as a simple service. And they have different versions of their operational system in their computers. They get stuff from their children that are old, and so on. So it's a lot of things that hinder people to join. Mm-hmm. But if you manage to combine the context and make it easy in guidance and so on, and then have fun, it works.
Yeah.
But what I see when I talk to my partner that are very relational focused, and I'm a task guy. I want to solve things. How can we have a projector here and show Amy Peck here on, while and so on in the full size in MacGyver style and so on. But she says that it doesn't feel at home when you have the gadgets and the thing about, so the context doesn't feel well. Do you have any tricks or advice when it comes to make this new world feel more familiar?
Yeah, I think it's not even just, I think familiar, making it feel familiar is one thing. I think the other thing, you touched on it, is the simplicity. And I feel like, a lot of the older generation feel a little bit left behind. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that we need to kind of dispel that fear. And I think there's some products like Portal, and there's others where it's kind of one touch. And I think the iPad's been amazing, and things like FaceTime. But it's a tough question in terms of how to kind of control their environment. I actually love the background feature on Zoom. You see, I have a screen here. I've just moved, and it's just blocking. Right behind there is just boxes. Mm-hmm. And so all day when I'm on Zoom, I actually have different backgrounds, and I go and I scour the web, and I'll go on Wayfair, I'll go to like interior, like Architectural Digest, right? And I'll find this fantastic environment. And it's funny, for sometimes people come in and they go, "Oh, your house is amazing." And for those few moments while I'm on the call with them, my house is amazing because that's what I see. And so I don't know if that, if that then becomes another layer of technology that becomes a challenge, but maybe if there were, these kind of backgrounds, or maybe for them it's pictures of their family that are behind them, or it's sort of an enhanced version of their own environment. I think there's some interesting and creative ways, but the thing that is one of the bigger challenges, and this is worldwide and it's within companies, is that we actually just forget to go out and ask people what they want. And I think, canvassing some of the groups that you're working with and some of the people who are using your technology and saying, what would make this better? How can we make this easier for you? What would you like your environment to look like? Do you care if your background's different? Would you like to have pictures of your family behind you? Or would you like them to be able to share new pictures with you? What would that look like? And I think you'll start to hear some interesting things that could help lead what the next, feature sets might be.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I like a Dutch, a Netherlandic service called Meebo, Get Meebo. And what they have done is taken a 3D world, and we are avatars, but we have the frame with our video and camera here, and we go via browser. And you just use very simple movements like this. And that's a good entry into when you are an avatar looking uncanny.
Yes, exactly.
With
Yes,
no
yes.
legs, and you go like this. And my partner said, I don't want to be there. They go like this. But she liked to be in Meebo. So I think asking questions and then get them in.
Exactly. So Philip Rosedale, who was the co-founder of Second Life, and then founded High Fidelity shortly thereafter. High Fidelity is such a fantastic environment, and he's open sourced, those environments. There's still people building in those worlds today. But what he decided to do was to just peel all of this back and go for spatial audio. So now there's a component of spatial audio. It's a set of APIs that you can layer into any environment. And the spatial audio is amazing. But I was in one environment recently. Actually, his son is doing AI art, which is pretty phenomenal. So you basically create a persona with an AI, and then you feed it the data about its life, and then you let it just create art. And so his son did that. And so he had a gallery opening virtually, and we were using his High Fidelity, the spatial audio, but we were showing up just as little circles with our pictures in them.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, no hands, nothing. But looking at, and I saw Jackie Mori in there, who's just a legendary, one of the godmothers of VR, along with Nani de la Pena. But, we were able, I hadn't seen her. I didn't know she was there, but I heard her voice, and her voice is unmistakable, and I found her. So I think that we don't necessarily need to do these leaps and bounds yet, because as you say, Uncanny Valley is a thing. No one really likes it. But there's a lot of things we can do in the short term to make these experiences feel more human. And especially now, we've all had a year of just interacting digitally. So I think there's going to be a lot more forgiveness moving forward. But I think there are a lot of other things we can do in the short term. So I'm going to check that out. So it was what was it called? Meebo?
Meebo.
Oh, Meebo.
Mibo. And it's getmibo.com.
Okay. I'm going to check that out. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, Thomas, for your intervention. So I think we are at least at the end some way. We have some questions, so I will try to do quickly. Maria says, how large do you think will the virtual and augmented reality consumer markets get? I don't know if she means millions of people or things like that.
Yeah, so I think the one of the reports I saw, and it was actually a report that came out right before the pandemic, was some of the projections just for the VR market alone. I think we're 25 billion by 2023. I might be getting all of this wrong, but if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I do have a lot of reports on some of the projections. So there's Super Data, which is a Nielsen company, has a lot of data, IDC. There's also Artillery, which is does a lot of market reports. So there's some good ones out there. Greenlight Insights. So I'm happy to share some of those with you if you reach out on LinkedIn, and you can get some of the latest data and not trust me because I might be getting my numbers wrong without looking at
no,
the
but maybe
reports
she wanted only a large scale number. I don't think she wanted the exact number. So the last thing, and then we need to go. But Wide said some critics about asking what people want, and reminds the Henry Ford sentence, if I'd ask people what they wanted, they'd have asked for faster horses. So do you think people opinion is to be listened, or take another path?
Well, I think there's a little of both, and it's funny because, you know, Henry Ford asking that question, and I actually love that quote. That speaks to how we spend a lot of our time actually not thinking about what we really want. It's almost like it's a fear, or we don't believe that we should be thinking about what we want. We're trying to either predict, where things are going to take us, or we're just waiting for technology to unfold and then react. But I think it boils down to actually teaching this type of volumetric thinking when we're young, and kind of harnessing that ability we have when we're children to really connect these sort of disparate, seemingly impossible thought processes, but then bring that core ability into adulthood so that we don't really lose touch with our creative nature. Because with the rise of the machines and robotics and automation, we are going to get a lot of time back, and we should be using that time to become creators and hone our skills as creators and visionaries.
Yeah, brings another issue that is not strictly related to ARVR, but people are fearing machines advent to work, to jobs, etc. But they don't realize that not having to do manual work can rise up their level of consciousness, and maybe more fantasy, more elaboration on the brain. So it's a chance more than a struggle. I don't know.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think that, if you're doing a job that is just a rote activity that could be replaced by automation, wouldn't you be happier really doing something else? Even if it's just controlling the robot that's doing the rote activity, might be better. Do you really love that particular activity that you're doing over and over again? And I think that, automation does take certain jobs, but it creates other jobs. And, I'm a big proponent also of open source, and for a lot more people to become part of, especially around, the AI story and learning how to code for AI. I think we should really be promoting that. Otherwise, we're going to have a very small subset of people who are hard coding their unconscious bias. We don't even understand how our own minds work, right? And we're building, brains in these large scale computers, and we don't understand what the ramifications are. So just as much as I think we all need to be involved in what our story of the future is, I think we all need to be involved in the future of technology. Just pick one small part that's interesting to you and learn about it. That's, I don't think that's a lot to ask. I think that's achievable for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, but I have to say hello to everybody, also to you, Amy. It was a pleasure having a chat with you and with our users. I want to remember everybody that once I end the session, they can return to the break networking part, the lounge. So stay in the event, because we have other session to come, okay?
Indeed. So, thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for your time, Amy. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.